She got into his bed almost naked, saying it was an Apache ritual. He remained silent. It was a warm spring evening when Alex arrived at the small-town festival that happened every year near the edge of the forest. The streets were full of lights, laughter, and the smell of fresh food. People were moving in every direction. Children running around with painted faces, couples holding hands, and musicians playing cheerful tunes near the wooden stalls. Alex had always loved these festivals. There was something magical about the way the air felt lighter, as if all the worries of daily life were left behind for a few hours. Alex had come alone this year, hoping for a quiet evening where he could enjoy the music and maybe meet new people. He wandered past the stalls, looking at handmade jewelry, colorful fabrics, and jars filled with honey and jams. Each stall seemed to tell a story, and he felt a strange sense of connection to everyone there. Even though he didn't know anyone personally, the smiles of strangers made him feel welcome. As he walked deeper into the festival, he noticed a small group gathered around a campfire. The flames danced and crackled, sending sparks up into the sky. People were sitting on logs and blankets, listening intently to a storyteller who spoke of old traditions and rituals from faraway lands.
Alex found himself drawn to the fire, the warmth mixing with the sound of the night.
The storyteller's voice was calm yet full of mystery, telling stories about people who had learned lessons about bravery, kindness, and respect for nature. Among the group, Alex saw someone who immediately caught his attention.
She seemed different from the others. Her hair was dark and braided with tiny beads that shimmered in the firelight. She wore a colorful shawl over her shoulders, and there was a quiet confidence in the way she moved, busting. She wasn't speaking loudly or drawing attention, but somehow she seemed to belong to the stories themselves. When their eyes met, Alex felt a strange sense of curiosity. The tales she might carry up. The storyteller finished one of his stories and the group erupted in applause. People started talking quietly, sharing their own experiences and thoughts about the tales. Alex slowly made his way closer to the girl, not wanting to seem too eager, but hoping for a conversation. Approaching and smiled lightly, a smile that felt like an invitation without any words.
"Hi," Alex said, his voice slightly hesitant.
Do you enjoy these stories? She nodded.
"Yes."
They remind me of things my grandmother used to tell me. Stories of courage and respect, of how people can live in harmony with the world around them. Sometimes I forget those lessons in daily life, but hearing them here makes me remember.
Alex was struck by her answer.
There was a depth to her words, a wisdom that went beyond her years.
They began talking about the festival, about traditions from different places, and even about small, ordinary things like favorite foods and childhood memories.
Time seemed to pass quickly, though they barely noticed. The laughter of children, the crackle of the fire, and the soft music from nearby stalls created a perfect background for their conversation. Eventually, the crowd around the fire started to thin, and people began leaving for the main part of the festival. Alex and the girl walked together along the path, talking about the stars that were just beginning to appear in the night sky. There was a gentle breeze, carrying the scent of flowers and the distant sound of the river. Alex realized that this simple walk felt different from anything he had experienced before. It was peaceful, exciting, and full of possibilities all at the same time. At one point, they reached a small clearing where the moonlight fell on a circle of smooth stones. The girl stopped and looked at them thoughtfully. My grandmother used to tell me that circles like this are special, she said. They are meant for reflection and learning. Some people call them ritual circles, but really, they are about finding balance and understanding ourselves better. Alex listened closely, fascinated by her knowledge. There was no sense of pressure or awkwardness, just a genuine sharing of ideas and stories. She continued, even small actions can be rituals if they help us remember what is important. Lighting a fire, telling a story, or even taking a quiet walk. These can all be ways to connect with ourselves and the world around us. They sat on one of the stones together, letting the quiet of the night surround them. The festival sounds faded into the distance, leaving only the soft rustle of leaves and the distant call of an owl. Alex felt a calm he hadn't experienced in a long time. He realized that meeting her, listening to her stories, and sharing his own thoughts had already made the evening meaningful. Before long, they decided it was time to head back to the main festival. As they walked, Alex noticed how easy it was to talk to her, how natural their conversation felt, and how he wasn't afraid to be himself. The night air was cool, but the connection he felt made him feel warm and light-hearted. By the time they reached the bright lights of the festival again, he understood that this evening would stay with him for a long time. Even as the festival continued around them, filled with laughter and music, Alex's mind kept returning to the quiet moments by the fire and in the clearing. There was something about her presence that was calming, yet exciting, a combination he couldn't quite describe. It felt like the start of a new chapter, a story yet to unfold, and he was eager to see where it might lead. As they parted ways that night, exchanging smiles and promises to meet again at another festival, Alex walked home slowly, thinking about the lessons the storyteller had shared, the wisdom in the girl's words, and the beauty of connecting with someone in a simple, genuine way. He realized that sometimes the most memorable experiences aren't the loud, dramatic moments, but the quiet, meaningful ones that touch your heart and make you feel alive.
By the time Alex reached his small apartment, the sky was clear and the stars shone brightly above.
He sat by the window for a long while, reflecting on the night. The festival, the stories, the fire, and the girl's words all blended into a memory he knew he would cherish. And deep down he felt a quiet excitement, a curiosity about the next part of the story that life was beginning to write for him. The next morning, Alex woke up with a quiet excitement still lingering from the previous night. The memory of the festival, the storyteller's voice, and the girl's calm, thoughtful presence kept playing in his mind like a soft melody. He made himself a cup of coffee and looked out the window. The sky was clear, painted with shades of pink and orange as the sun rose. Birds were singing, and the city was slowly waking up. Despite the ordinary routine of the day ahead, Alex felt that something about his life had already shifted, though he couldn't put his finger on exactly what. He thought about the girl constantly. Her way of speaking, her knowledge of traditions, and the gentle way she had listened to him made him realize how rare it was to meet someone who could make him feel understood so quickly. He wondered if he would see her again, or if the festival was just a fleeting moment, a brief story to carry in his memory. His curiosity was strong enough that he decided he would go back to the same spot near the forest, hoping to catch another glimpse of her. By midday, Alex was walking along the familiar path that led to the festival grounds. The streets were quieter now, most people having left after the festivities, but the smell of food from the few remaining vendors and the distant laughter of children reminded him of the warmth from the night before. He approached the clearing near the edge of the forest where the fire had been, hoping to find her there. The stones were still arranged in a circle, but the fire was gone. Dest. He felt a pang of disappointment, but also a small thrill. Sometimes the best experiences were the ones that required a little patience and persistence. As he sat on one of the stones, he noticed movement from behind the trees. The girl appeared, carrying a small backpack and wearing the same colorful shawl he remembered. She waved lightly, and Alex waved back, feeling a sense of relief and happiness. "Hi," she said, smiling. "I didn't expect to see anyone here this morning." "I thought I might find you," Alex replied, trying to sound casual but failing slightly because of how much he wanted to talk to her. "Place again. To think about what we talked about last night."
She nodded, sitting down beside him. "I'm glad you came."
It's quiet here in the morning. You can really feel the forest waking up. It's a different kind of story than the one around the fire, but maybe just as important. They sat together, listening to the soft rustling of leaves and the distant sound of a bird calling. The air was fresh and smelled faintly of pine and earth. There was a comfortable silence between them, the kind that doesn't feel awkward, but instead lets people think and reflect. Alex realized he could stay in this moment for hours, just observing, listening, and sharing the quiet company of someone who seemed to understand the rhythm of life in a simple, meaningful way. After a few minutes, the girl began to speak. I come here sometimes when I need to think. It's a place where the world slows down. My grandmother used to take me to places like this when I was a child. She said that being in nature helps you see things clearly without the noise of everyday life clouding your mind. Alex listened carefully. I can see that. It's peaceful here. I didn't realize how much I needed a quiet place like this until I came here last night. They began talking about their childhoods, sharing small memories of school, friends, and family. Alex told her about the summers he spent at his grandparents' house, the games he played with neighborhood kids, and the small adventures that had seemed ordinary at the time but now felt special in memory. Boss. She shared stories of her own, the walks she took through forests, the festivals she had attended with her family, and the little rituals she practiced to remind herself to be patient and kind. As the conversation deepened, Alex realized something important. This wasn't just a meeting of two people at a festival. It was a connection of perspectives, a sharing of experiences that made both of them feel less alone in the world. The stories they told each other weren't dramatic or heroic, but they were real. They were human, full of small victories, mistakes, lessons learned, and moments of joy. After some time, they decided to explore the forest a little. The path was narrow, lined with wild flowers and tall trees that swayed gently in the morning breeze. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating patterns on the ground that shifted as the wind moved. Alex felt a sense of adventure, though it was calm rather than thrilling. Every step seemed like a small discovery, and with her by his side, even the ordinary path became a story waiting to unfold. They came across a small stream, the water clear and cold as it trickled over smooth stones. The girl knelt down, cupping some water in her hands, and Alex did the same. Water is a gift, she said quietly. Patience. It moves around obstacles without force, yet it reaches where it needs to go. I think we can learn a lot from it. Alex smiled at her words. They were simple but meaningful. He felt as if every sentence she spoke carried a quiet wisdom, the kind that lingers long after it is heard. They sat by the stream for a while, tossing small stones and watching the ripples spread. Each ripple seemed to mirror the way their conversation flowed, starting from a single point and spreading outward, touching ideas, feelings, and memories. As the morning turned to afternoon, they returned to the clearing. The stones glistened in the sunlight, and the wind had shifted slightly, bringing the fresh scent of flowers from the forest's edge. They sat together again, sharing small snacks they had brought with them. The girl spoke about the importance of simple pleasures, of moments like this that remind people to slow down and appreciate the present. Alex realized that this was more than just a morning walk. It was a lesson in attention, in noticing details, in valuing the world around him and the people who made it richer. He found himself asking questions he had never asked before, not just about traditions or stories, but about life, happiness, and the meaning of ordinary moments. Before leaving, the girl suggested one last thing.
If you want, we can meet here again tomorrow. I have a small journal where I write my observations and reflections.
Sometimes it helps to share what we see with someone else. You don't have to, but it could be nice.
Alex didn't hesitate.
I'd like that, he said. He felt a sense of anticipation, the kind that comes when you know that the next day holds more discovery, more conversation, and more connection. As they parted, Alex walked home slowly, reflecting on the morning. he realized that life had a way of introducing people at the right time. Sometimes it was in moments of quiet, in ordinary settings, that the most important lessons were learned and the most meaningful connections were made. The festival had been fun, yes, but this morning had been something deeper. A beginning. A chance to see the world through new eyes. By evening, Alex was already thinking about the next day. He made a small plan. To bring his notebook, to write down observations, and to continue the conversation. He also thought about how unusual it was to meet someone who could make ordinary things feel extraordinary, and how rare that feeling was in life, both calming and exciting. Like standing at the edge of a river and knowing that stepping in could carry you somewhere new. That night, as he prepared for bed, he replayed the day in his mind. Every sound, every smile, every lesson felt vivid. And though the city outside his window was quiet, his mind was alive with possibility. He knew that tomorrow would bring another chapter, another set of discoveries, and another chance to understand more about the world and about himself. With that thought, he finally drifted to sleep, ready for whatever the morning might bring, eager to continue a story that had already begun to feel important, meaningful, and unforgettable. The next morning, Alex woke up feeling unusually awake, as if the excitement from the previous day had carried over into his dreams. The sunlight streamed through his window, making the room glow with warmth. He had barely slept the night before, thinking about the day ahead. Today, he would meet her again at the clearing by the forest. He felt a mixture of nervousness and anticipation, a strange combination of eagerness and calm that he had rarely experienced. After a quick breakfast, Alex packed a small bag with a notebook, a pen, and a bottle of water. He wanted to record his thoughts, his observations, and anything she might share. Even though he wasn't sure what would happen, he felt that these simple preparations would make the day feel more intentional. The walk to the forest felt longer than usual, but in a good way. Every step seemed to allow him to think, to observe the small details around him, and to feel more connected to the world. When he arrived at the clearing, she was already there. She had placed her backpack near one of the stones and was sitting quietly, her gaze following a bird that hopped near the forest edge. When she noticed him, she smiled warmly, and Alex felt a sense of relief. There was something comforting about that smile, a reassurance that made him feel welcome and accepted without any pressure. "Good morning," she said softly. "I was hoping you would come." "Good morning," Alex replied. "I'm glad I did. It feels peaceful here, even more than yesterday." She nodded. "It is peaceful. The morning light changes everything. You can see small details, hear quiet sounds, and notice things you might miss in the busy hours of the day. Nature has a way of teaching us patience."
They began walking along the forest path again, but this time Alex carried his notebook. He tried to capture the little things, the way sunlight fell on the leaves, the movement of shadows on the ground, the soft hum of distant insects.
She noticed him writing and smiled. "It's good to record what you see. Sometimes our minds forget the details, but writing them down keeps the moments alive." As they walked, their conversation turned deeper. She spoke about her experiences growing up, her love for nature, and how small rituals, like morning walks or listening to the wind, had helped her understand herself better. Alex shared his own thoughts, admitting that he had rarely paid attention to the world in this way before. Most of his days had been spent moving quickly from task to task, rarely pausing to reflect. Listening to her, he realized that he had been missing something important, the value of presence. At one point, they reached a small hill overlooking the forest. Pond. From there, they could see the tops of the trees stretching far into the distance, and beyond that, the faint outlines of the town. She sat down on a rock and gestured for him to sit beside her. The breeze was cool, carrying the scents of flowers and fresh grass. Alex took a deep breath, feeling more relaxed than he had in a long time. "Sometimes," she said, "you have to step back to see the bigger picture. Life is like this forest. Up close, it can seem confusing or messy, but from a little distance, patterns appear, and you can understand how everything fits together."
Alex nodded, understanding exactly what she meant.
"It makes sense," he said. "I often feel like I'm caught up in small problems and forget to see the bigger picture." They sat in silence for several minutes, watching as the sunlight shifted and the shadows of the trees grew longer. There was no need for words. The quiet was comfortable and full of meaning. Then she spoke again, this time about her journal.
I write about moments like this, she explained. Not just the big events, but the small ones, the feelings, the observations, the lessons.
"It helps me notice things I might forget otherwise."
How?
He opened his notebook and began writing about the morning, the way the wind moved through the leaves, the way the light hit her face, the sense of calm he felt just by being near her. Writing made him feel more connected, as if he were capturing the magic of the moment before it disappeared. As the morning progressed, they walked further into the forest, discovering a narrow path that led to a hidden glade. The glade was small but beautiful, filled with wildflowers and the soft murmur of a nearby stream. The air smelled sweet and fresh, and the sunlight filtered through the trees in golden beams. Bex. Alex felt like he had stumbled upon a secret world, a place that existed outside of time. "This place is amazing," he said quietly. "How did you find it mysteriously?" "I've known about it for years. It's one of my favorite places to think. It's like the forest has its own quiet wisdom, and if you listen carefully, you can learn from it." They sat on the soft grass near the stream, letting the sound of water fill the space between them. She took out her journal and began sketching the scene, capturing the light, the trees, and the stream in delicate lines. Alex watched her, noticing how focused she was, and then he took out his notebook and began to write again. The act of recording, observing, and reflecting felt like a shared ritual, even though they weren't speaking much. After some time, they lay back on the grass, looking up at the sky through the gaps in the leaves. The sunlight created patterns on their faces, and a gentle breeze played with the edges of their clothes and hair. Alex realized that this was a rare kind of peace, one that didn't depend on excitement or noise, but on quiet observation and presence. "You know," she said, breaking the silence, "the forest teaches patience, attention, and respect. If you pay attention, you notice patterns, connections, and lessons that you might miss in the busy city. Every tree, stream, and stone has a story to tell."
Rather than static comics identify with the problem, could I control Persians to this change of life?
Alex smiled. "I think I'm starting to understand that." "I've never seen things like this before." "It's like the forest is speaking to me, through you and through everything around us." As the afternoon approached, they decided to return to the clearing. On the way back, they talked about small adventures they wanted to take, places they had dreamed of visiting, and the people who had inspired them in life. The conversation was light but meaningful, filled with curiosity, laughter, and thoughtful reflections. Alex noticed how easy it was to speak honestly with her, how natural it felt to share ideas and feelings without fear of judgment. Back at the clearing, they rested for a while, sitting on the stones in the warm sunlight. She offered Alex a small snack from her bag, and they shared it, enjoying the simplicity of the moment. Alex realized that he had never felt this relaxed with someone he had just met. The connection was quiet but strong, built on shared experiences, reflection, and attention to the world around them. Before they parted for the day, she suggested one more activity. Tomorrow, we could explore the edge of the forest that meets the river. "There's A place I like, where the water is calm and the stones create natural patterns.
It's beautiful in the morning light, and it teaches patience and observation. Alex agreed eagerly.
I'd like that very much. I want to keep learning from you, and from this place. They exchanged smiles, knowing that the days ahead promised more discovery, more shared moments, and more lessons. Alex walked home slowly, reflecting on everything he had seen and heard. Each step felt purposeful, and he felt more aware of his surroundings. The rustling of leaves, the distant sound of children playing, the sunlight bouncing off windows. The world seemed richer, fuller, and more alive than it had the day before. That night, Alex sat by his window with his notebook, writing about the day in detail. He described the glade, the stream, the patterns of sunlight, and the conversations they had shared. Writing gave him a sense of clarity, as if the day's lessons were settling into his mind and heart. He realized that this experience wasn't just about meeting someone new. It was about opening his senses, appreciating the world, and discovering the beauty in quiet moments. As he closed his notebook, he thought about tomorrow's adventure by the river. The excitement was different from the festival's thrill. It was softer, deeper, and more meaningful. He felt a growing sense of gratitude for the unexpected connection, for the forest, and for the chance to see life through fresh eyes. Finally, as he lay in bed, Alex felt a gentle calm. The world outside was quiet, the stars beginning to shine faintly through his window. But his mind was alive with possibilities, eager for the next morning, eager for the next step in a story that was slowly unfolding, full of lessons, reflections, and moments he would never forget. The following morning, Alex woke up with a sense of purpose he had never felt before. The excitement of yesterday had not faded. Instead, it had grown stronger.
Mayenda packed his notebook and a small bottle of water and left his apartment. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in soft shades of gold and pink.
Even the air felt different this morning, fresher, lighter, and filled with the kind of calm energy that made him feel ready for adventure. As he walked toward the forest, he thought about how much he had already learned in the past 2 days. The festival, the fire, the clearing, the hidden glade, each moment had opened his eyes to a new way of seeing the world, yet there was still so much to discover. Today's plan was special, to reach the river at the edge of the forest, a place the girl had said held its own quiet magic. Alex didn't know exactly what to expect, but that uncertainty only added to his anticipation. When he arrived at the clearing, she was already waiting, as if she had known exactly when he would come. She smiled at him warmly, and that simple gesture filled him with a sense of relief and excitement all at once. Her backpack rested on one of the stones, and she was scanning the trees around her, seemingly attentive to every sound and movement. "Good morning," she said softly. "I hope you slept well."
I did, Alex replied, smiling.
"I've been looking forward to today all night."
That's good, she said, standing up. The river is a little farther than yesterday, so we should start soon.
"I want you to see it in the morning light. It's different then, calm and quiet, and the stones create patterns that feel almost magical. They set off along the narrow forest path, stepping carefully over roots and small streams. The morning sunlight filtered through the tall trees, creating dappled patterns on the ground. Birds were singing in the branches above, and the occasional rustle in the underbrush reminded Alex of how alive the forest really was. With each step, he felt a growing sense of connection, not just to her, but to the world around him. The quiet rhythm of their walk felt like a ritual in itself, a slow dance through nature that required no words to be meaningful. As they walked, she shared more stories about her experiences in the forest. She spoke about how observing the smallest details, the shape of a leaf, the direction of the wind, the movement of insects, could teach lessons about patience, focus, and awareness. Alex listened closely, trying to absorb everything she said. He began to notice things he had never paid attention to before: the texture of tree bark, The way sunlight reflected off small puddles, the delicate patterns in the moss along the trail. After some time, they reached the river. It was more beautiful than Alex had imagined. The water flowed gently over smooth stones, creating soft ripples that caught the sunlight in sparkling patterns. The sound of the water was soothing, almost hypnotic, and the air carried the faint scent of wet earth and fresh grass. Alex felt a sense of awe. This place felt like a secret world, untouched and timeless, and he was grateful to share it with someone who could help him see its beauty. The girl knelt by the water's edge, picking up a flat stone and skipping it across the surface. Each stone created ripples that spread outward, touching everything around them. "Water teaches us about life," she said quietly. "It moves around obstacles instead of forcing its way through. It can teach us patience, persistence, and the importance of adapting to what comes our way." Pressed, Alex picked up a stone as well, trying to skip it across the water. He laughed when it sank after only one skip. "I'm not very good at this," he admitted.
She smiled.
It's not about success. It's about trying, observing, and learning.
Press. Even one small ripple makes a difference. It touches everything around it, even if you can't always see it. They spent a long time by the river, skipping stones, observing the water, and talking about life. The conversation flowed naturally, moving from reflections on nature to their personal experiences, dreams, and lessons learned.
Alex realized that he was beginning to see the world differently.
Simple things, like the way sunlight danced on the water or the sound of a bird's song, no longer felt ordinary. They felt meaningful, connected to something larger than himself. At one point, she suggested a quiet experiment. "Let's sit in silence for a while," she said. "Just observe. Listen. Feel the air, the water, the earth. Notice what you've never noticed before."
They sat together on the riverbank, letting the sounds and sights of the morning fill their senses. He focused on the gentle ripple of the water, the soft sway of the reeds, and the distant sound of birds calling to each other.
Time seemed to slow down, and he felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in years. The quiet wasn't empty. It was full of life, lessons, and subtle wonders.
After several minutes, she spoke again. "Observing in silence teaches us patience."
It also reminds us that life is full of small, beautiful moments that we often overlook. If we notice them, we can learn more than we ever thought possible.
Alex nodded. He began to write in his notebook, describing not only the physical details of the river and forest, but also the feelings the place evoked. Calmness, curiosity, connection, and a sense of wonder. The act of writing helped him understand more deeply what he was experiencing. As the morning turned toward midday, they explored the edges of the river, finding small pools where the water was still and clear. The sunlight reflected off the stones, creating intricate patterns that seemed almost like art. Alex noticed how careful she was in moving through the area, how she seemed to respect every element of the natural environment. He realized that her presence was teaching him not just to see, but to approach the world with care and mindfulness. They also talked about challenges they had faced in their lives, small failures, moments of doubt, and times when things had not gone as planned. She spoke about how observing nature had helped her cope with uncertainty and stress, and Alex shared how his past routines had often left him feeling disconnected. The conversation was honest but gentle, full of insights that didn't feel forced. It felt like two people learning together, guiding each other through reflection without judgment. Eventually, they returned to the clearing, tired but content. They sat on the stones, sharing a simple snack and enjoying the warmth of the sun. Alex reflected on how much he had learned in just one morning. Lessons about patience, observation, connection, and presence. Each experience felt like a small gift, a story that was slowly teaching him how to live more intentionally. Before parting for the day, the girl suggested another plan.
Tomorrow we could visit a small hill beyond the forest. From there, you can see the entire town and the surrounding forests. It's a place I like to go when I want perspective. You can see patterns, directions, and even possibilities that aren't obvious from the ground. Alex smiled. I would like that. I feel like each day here is helping me understand things I never noticed before. I want to keep learning. As they said goodbye, Alex walked home slowly, reflecting on everything he had experienced. The forest, the river, and her presence had opened his mind to ways of seeing the world he had never considered. He felt a quiet excitement about the next day, knowing that more discoveries, lessons, and reflections awaited him. That evening, he sat at his window again, writing down his thoughts in detail. He described the river, the patterns of stones, the movement of the water, and the conversation they had shared. Writing helped him remember not just the events, but the feelings and lessons of the day. He realized that the true value of these experiences wasn't only in seeing or hearing. They were in feeling, observing, and reflecting. By the time he went to bed, Alex felt a growing sense of gratitude. He was thankful for the unexpected connection, the quiet lessons, and the chance to see the world in a new light. Desperate. He also felt anticipation, knowing that the next day's adventure on the hill would offer more perspective, more insight, and another opportunity to grow. As he closed his eyes, he thought about the small ripples in the river, the sunlight on the stones, and the quiet wisdom she shared. He realized that life was full of such moments, waiting for those who paid attention. And with that thought, he drifted to sleep, eager to continue a story that was slowly teaching him how to notice, reflect, and appreciate the beauty in the ordinary. The next morning, Alex woke with a sense of excitement and calm all at once. Today was the day he and the girl had planned to visit the hill beyond the forest, a place she had described as offering a full view of the town and surrounding forests. He packed his bag carefully, making sure he had his notebook, a bottle of water, and a small snack. As he walked toward the forest, the sunlight was gentle and golden, and the air carried the soft scent of blooming flowers and fresh grass. Every step seemed deliberate, as if he were moving not only through the forest, but also toward something meaningful within himself. When he reached the clearing, she was already there, sitting on one of the stones with her backpack resting beside her. She looked up and smiled warmly, and Alex felt a sense of comfort and familiarity wash over him. "Good morning," she said softly. "I am glad you came. Today's walk will be a little longer, but I think you'll enjoy the view from the top." "Good morning," Alex replied. "I'm ready and looking forward to this all night." They started walking along the winding forest path, which gradually became steeper as they climbed toward the hill. The path was lined with trees whose branches intertwined above them, forming a natural canopy. The sunlight filtered through in soft patterns, creating a mosaic of light and shadow on the ground. Birds flitted from branch to branch, and the gentle rustle of leaves accompanied their footsteps. The forest seemed alive with quiet energy, and Alex felt a deep sense of presence with every step.
As they climbed, the girl began to speak about perspective.
"Sometimes," she said, "you need to step back, rise above your everyday surroundings, and see the bigger picture. From the ground, life can seem complicated, even chaotic, but from a higher viewpoint, patterns emerge. You notice paths, connections, and possibilities that weren't obvious before." Alex listened carefully, realizing the truth in her words. He had spent so much of his life focused on immediate tasks, rarely pausing to reflect or observe the larger patterns around him. This experience was teaching him not only to see the world differently, but also to approach life with patience and mindfulness. After some time, they reached the top of the hill. The view was breathtaking. The town lay below, like a miniature model, its rooftops reflecting the morning sunlight.
Beyond the town, the forest stretched endlessly, the treetops forming a green sea dotted with streams and clearings. The wind was gentle, carrying the fresh scent of earth, grass, and distant flowers. Alex felt a sense of awe and gratitude. They sat on a large, flat rock at the hilltop, taking in the panorama. "It's beautiful," Alex said quietly. "I have never seen anything like this before." She nodded. "It is. But more than that, it's a reminder that life has perspective."
Problems that seem large from one viewpoint may appear smaller when you step back, and things that seem ordinary may reveal their significance when you observe closely.
Alex opened his notebook and began writing immediately, describing the view, the feeling of being on the hill, and the thoughts her words had inspired. Writing seemed more important than ever now, as if capturing this moment in detail would allow him to remember it forever. He wrote about the patterns of streets, the colors of the rooftops, the shapes of the treetops, and the quiet rhythm of the forest beyond. They talked for hours, sharing stories, reflections, and ideas. The girl spoke about her experiences traveling to quiet places, learning from the natural world, and noticing how even the smallest actions could create ripples that affected more than one person. Alex shared his own experiences, realizing how much he had missed by not paying attention before. Together, they reflected on the importance of observation, mindfulness, and the connections that made life richer. As the day went on, they explored the hilltop and its surroundings. They discovered a small grove of trees, where sunlight streamed through the leaves in golden beams. They sat there in silence for a while, listening to the wind, the distant hum of the town, and the quiet flow of a stream far below. Alex felt an incredible sense of peace and clarity, as if every step of the past few days had led him to this moment of understanding, quiet activity. "Let's take a few minutes to write down what we see, what we feel, and what we notice about ourselves," she said. "Perfect. Just observe and reflect." Alex nodded and took out his notebook. He wrote about the view, the colors, the shapes, the light, and the patterns of nature. But he also wrote about his thoughts and feelings, the calm he felt, the curiosity that kept growing, and the sense of connection he had with her and the world around him. When he finished, he showed her his notes, and she smiled approvingly.
"You're noticing things," she said, "and that noticing is a form of learning."
It helps you understand not only the world, but yourself. They spent the afternoon exploring smaller trails near the hill, observing the forest from different angles and noticing patterns in the streams, rocks, and trees. They shared ideas about life, perspective, and the importance of small, mindful actions. Each moment felt meaningful, even though nothing dramatic or extraordinary was happening. It was the quiet attention, the shared presence, and the reflections that made the day special. At one point, Alex realized how much he had changed over the past few days. He felt more aware, patient, and appreciative of the ordinary. He noticed the small details around him, the texture of tree bark, the movement of birds, the pattern of shadows, and felt gratitude for these moments. He also noticed the impact of her presence, her calm, thoughtful way of observing, her gentle encouragement, and her insights had helped him see the world in a way he never had before. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink, orange, and gold, they returned to the hilltop rock. They sat side by side, watching as the light faded and the shadows grew longer. The view was now transformed, the town bathed in the soft glow of evening, and the forest darkening in a gentle hush. Alex felt a deep sense of completion, as if this day and these past few days had taught him lessons he would carry forever. She turned to him and said softly, "Life is made up of moments like this, moments of attention, presence, and reflection. They may seem small, but they create ripples that last far longer than we realize." Alex nodded, feeling the truth of her words. "I understand that now," he said. "I've learned to see, to notice, and to reflect. and I've learned that even ordinary moments can become extraordinary if we pay attention. They stayed on the hill until the last light faded and the first stars appeared in the sky. The air grew cooler, and the wind whispered through the treetops. Alex felt a sense of gratitude, not just for the view or the day, but for the experience of seeing the world differently, for the quiet wisdom he had received, and for the meaningful connection he had formed. As they walked back down the forest path toward the town, they spoke about the future, not in terms of plans or obligations, but in terms of continuing to notice, reflect, and learn. Alex realized that this experience wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of a way of living, a perspective that he could carry into his daily life.
When they reached the edge of the forest, they paused and looked back at the hill.
"Thank you for sharing this with me," Alex said sincerely. She smiled. "And thank you for noticing. That is the most important part." Observing, reflecting, and appreciating. That is how we grow. As Alex walked home, he thought about the lessons of the past 5 days. He thought about the festival, the fire, the clearing, the glade, the river, and the hill. Each step of the journey had been a story, a learning experience, and a reminder that life was full of quiet, meaningful moments waiting to be discovered. He realized that happiness, understanding, and growth were not always found in grand events, but often in small acts of observation, reflection, and connection. That evening, Alex sat by his window with his notebook once more. He wrote about the hill, the sunset, the patterns of the town and forest, and the lessons he had learned. But more importantly, he wrote about himself, the patience he had gained, the perspective he had found, and the way his mind and heart had opened to a deeper understanding of the world. As he closed his notebook and looked out at the darkening sky, Alex felt a quiet confidence. He knew that life would continue with its ordinary routines and occasional challenges, but he also knew that he had discovered a way to notice, reflect, and appreciate the small wonders that surround him. And in that awareness he found a sense of peace, meaning, and fulfillment that he had never experienced before. Finally, as he drifted to sleep, he thought about the journey of the past 5 days and smiled. He understood that life was a series of ripples, patterns, and quiet lessons, and that by paying attention, noticing, and reflecting, he could turn ordinary days into extraordinary stories that would stay with him forever.